Welcome, everybody, to the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. As always, the Indiana Basketball Show and the Grueling Truth is powered by Betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding the online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. Check them out now at Betting.net. I am your co-host for the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster. We've been gone for a while, Steve. And as always, a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley is my co-host as always. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back at it. We're going to finish out the season from here on out now and do a weekly show and then do some updates periodically as big games roll around. And there's no bigger game in the IU arsenal right now than what's going to happen today at 4 o'clock Eastern time. It's so big of a game, Mike, that Dick Vitale chose to cover this game over the Duke, North Carolina game.
Yeah, but you know what's the pitch? Is it wasn't big enough for two ranked teams playing each other to be the main primetime game on ESPN. They stuck Dickie V with us to make it better, but they stuck Duke and North Carolina, two unranked teams, at the 8 o'clock spot. So it doesn't really matter, but I just like to pitch.
That's all right. Because I have NASCAR to watch tonight, so the qualifying for the Clash at the Coliseum is on tonight. So this works out perfect for me. I get IU basketball at 1 o'clock and NASCAR racing at 4 o'clock. And somewhere in there, they're probably going to throw a NFL skills challenge all-star game.
That is the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
It is dumber than.
We're not going to talk. Don't talk about it. We don't.
All right, I'm not. Let's just drop it.
Let's
get on. Let's get on to the celebration this afternoon.
I know this. Indiana right now, 15-7. I believe they're set up to make the NCAA tournament. But a loss today, a few things go wrong. This team could sit 8th to 10th in the Big Ten. But if a few things go right, you'll have a win over Purdue, be a few games over 500, everything will be rolling. The Purdue Boilermakers have only lost one game this year. They have been kind of a machine so far, Steve. They don't make mistakes. To beat them, you actually have to beat them.
Yeah, I agree. Now, several things to just kind of touch on here is that I think Indiana's only lost one home game this year. I think they're 11-1 or something around those lines. So they play well at Assembly Hall. This crowd is going to be rabid. I'm not sure that Purdue has faced anything quite like what they're going to face this afternoon at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. It's a game to where, like you stated eloquently, every game from here on out matters because you're playing for Ken Pong ratings. You're playing for stature in the Big Ten. You're right. A couple of losses and Indiana could be back in the bottom third of the Big Ten and then scraping to get in the tournament, via a 12 or 13 or 14 seed. And we don't want that because we don't have to face a Purdue or some team like that early in the season. So it's more imperative, I believe, for Indiana to play well this afternoon and get the job done and get this win. This is a major win for Indiana. To me, this win solidifies them a good seeding in the tournament, beating a number one ranked team, and gives them probably a lot of confidence moving forward for the rest of the Big Ten season.
Yeah, and you talked about Purdue on the road. Purdue was undefeated. Their only loss was at home. They beat West Virginia. They beat Gonzaga this year. Those were in pre-conference tournaments or so, but they beat Duke. They beat Florida State. And then when you look at the away games, like I said, they've dominated whether they've been home or away, and they might have been better away. They beat Ohio State with a last-second comeback, 71-69. They blew out Penn State at Penn State, and we know what happened when IU played there a little over a month ago. They won at Michigan State. They're coming off a 16-point blowout of Michigan State at home, a 20-point blowout of Penn State at home. So when you look at this, I mean, the advantage to me that IU has in most games is Trace Jackson Davis in the paint. I don't know that you have that advantage in this game. And what you've got to get, and against Maryland, Indiana didn't get it. They've got to be able to knock down shots from the perimeter. They've got to have a point guard that sets up the offense. Jalen Hood-Schifino last game, 1 for 14. Game before that, he's on fire. IU wins. I think the whole key to this game tonight is Jalen Hood-Schifino and whether he can control the tempo of the game or whether this turns into the kind of pace Purdue wants to play at.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the marquee matchup here is Trace Jackson Davis against Zach Edey. But I think it's the ancillary players. It's the Schifinos, the Cops, and the Galloways against the Lawyers and the Braden Smiths. This game is going to be won, I believe, with the subordinate players, I call them. And I hate to use that term because a lot of these guys are double-digit scorers on behalf of their respective teams. But, some early keys here is, Trace Jackson Davis is prone to get into foul trouble playing against a kid like Zach Edey. Edey's taller, an adept inside player. They get the ball to him. They use him in their offense. He's averaging 22 points and 13 rebounds a game. Trace is 19-5 and 11 rebounds a game. So it's almost a wash between these two players. But how they each play defensively, guarding Trace Jackson Davis is not an easy task for any player in the country this year. He has proven his worth to be able to score at will. Edey, I'm not sure that Jackson Davis has faced anybody as tall and as big and as mobile as Edey. So that's going to be a great match. That's a sub match within the game itself. But like you said, Schifino, Kopp, Galloway for Indiana, Fletcher, Lawyer, and Braden Smith for Purdue. And I think the one thing we need to spend some time talking about here, Mike, is coaching. I think the coaching advantage right now goes to Purdue's coach, goes to Matt Painter.
Well, it has to. He's 22-1.
He's 22-1, and he's coached 18 seasons at Purdue. And no disrespect to Mike. I mean, I love Mike. Mike is, one of my favorite teammates of playing at IU, and we spent 3 years together at IU. But I just think as he continues to grow and learn, there's a good opportunity, and not a good opportunity, there's an opportunity here for him to possibly get out coaching this game because Matt Painter is probably the premier Big Ten basketball coach right now. 18 seasons. He's the dean.
The only thing that could help us out right now if this was in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, because Purdue does not fare well in the tournament, I know, but this is not. This is a regular knuckle game, but, just a league game. I know this, how hard this game is to win for either team. In the 4 years with the success my teams had, winning, 2 Big Ten championships, an NIT championship, back when the NIT meant something to win because there were only 48 teams in the dance, and a national championship in 1981. We never won at Mackey Arena. Our teams, with the great players we had, the Woodsons, the Tolberts, the Turners, the Whitmans, the Kitchells. I'm going to throw the Risleys in there, but I think the rest of the guys probably.
Don't forget the Franzes,
the Chuck Franzes, yeah, the Phil Eisenbargers. We throw those players in. And of course, Purdue back then had great players too. Joe Barry, Drake Morris, Arnett Hall, the Walker brothers, Rosie Barnes, who went on to play football, I believe, some, and also is a successful sports agent now. So a lot of talent there, but they never won at Assembly Hall, and we never won at Mackey Arena. I did collect about $1.50 over the course of my 4 years there of coins being tossed to me on the floor while I'm shooting free throws. Pocketed the money and, had that money still in a little jar, along with Tom Brady's sand that he stood on when he announced his second retirement.
Yeah, you happened to be walking right by when that happened. People don't know that.
Yeah, no, I was. I was actually in Tampa Bay, and I was taking a walk on the beach with my Aussie Shepherd, and there was Tom, and he just was there with his iPhone, and he made his little announcement, took all of about 15 seconds, walked off the sand, and I grabbed the sand.
The bad thing is this: he asked if you were Steve Risley, and you said no just because you didn't want to be bothered by getting a picture taken with some guy that's just a guy.
He's not as big as you think he is. That's what's amazing. You think Tom Brady's this huge president? Anyway, we're way off tangent.
We're
Let's
always
get back to
way off
college
tangent.
basketball.
All right, so I think this.
What
I think
what are we looking
Purdue.
for?
I think this. I think the key is Race Thompson and Malik Renew
Yeah,
because Zach Edey has help. Guys like Caleb Burst,
yeah,
who is a decent player underneath. You had Mason Gillis, but my big thing is, can we get help? And the other thing is, guard wise, with Hood Shafino, we need to attack Eddie or Edie or whatever the hell his name is. I don't
right.
care if I say it right or not because he plays for Purdue. They won't even be relevant by the time we get to the third week of March. So when I look at this, you have to attack Zach Edey. If you
Right.
attack him, you could possibly get him in foul trouble. And the other thing, Steve, is how did you defend him? Because IU's not huge on double teaming guys in the low post, but don't you almost have to in this case?
Yeah, and those were two key things I wrote down, and you touched on one of them. We have got to have balanced scoring. I mean, Miller Kopp's got to have a good shooting day. You know, he's hot and cold. When he's hot, he's as good at three. He's a Whitman type 3-pointer shooter when he's hot. And when he's not, he is a Risley type shooter. he's
He's
just
not
like
that bad.
he's not that bad. Okay.
I'm kidding, Steve.
No. You're accurate. I was told every time I went in the game, now don't shoot the damn ball. And so, hence I only scored 550.
Well, and I'll tell you the other
40
thing
years.
about IU's offense in here and being able to move the ball is if they pass it around to get past the Purdue D is they're good defensively, but they do not force a lot of takeaways.
No,
so
they do
if
not.
you can attack on the inside, you know, you don't have to worry about the size, or if you can attack from the outside, you don't have to worry as much about the size in the
Right.
interior. But I still think this. Edie's a big dude, but he hasn't had to deal with a guy like Trace Jackson Davis. Do you think Edie will guard Trace Jackson Davis and vice versa?
I would not put Edie on Jackson Davis. I would do the, you know, and I don't know that I'd put Jackson Davis on Edie.
I would go. That's why I brought up Malik and Race,
right,
because that's who I would put at him.
Here's the key for Indiana defensively is that everybody on that team has to be aware of Edie, where he's at, and help. Because I think if I was Mike and in that locker room with the coaches, I'd be really pushing hard to not let Jackson Davis guard Edie. I would put Race Thompson on Edie. Definitely let Race bang with him, let him go. But it's important that everybody on that IU defense be alert and aware of where Edie is on the basketball court. Now, it doesn't mean you neglect your man, because with guys like Lawyer and Smith and some of the other scorers they've got, you can't ignore those players. That team's not ranked number one in the country with only one loss by dumb luck. I mean, that's a damn good basketball team. But you've got to support and help either Race Thompson, who I would have guard Edie, and Trace Jackson Davis, and keep, because losing Davis's 19.5 points a game will be a devastating blow to Indiana. Because while Indiana's Shafino and Miller Kopp and Galloway are capable of putting those points on the board, there's no guarantee they're going to do it. They're not consistent enough players past Trace Jackson Davis. Nobody on the IU team is what I would call consistently going to give you that effort.
Miller Kopp, I think, consistently gives you an effort.
Well, he gives you 8 points a game, though. I mean,
but you said effort. I mean, I think the issue is you've got guys like Shafino, Tamar Bates, who could be huge in this game. We've seen him go off, hit everything before. Indiana needs one of these guys to be able to step back and actually make the 3-point line matter, to loosen up the defense against Trace Jackson Davis.
Right.
And the big issue I have, and the thing that worries me the most, is Indiana, it seems like when they play physically bigger teams, they tend to not shoot the ball as well. When they face a medium-sized or small, shitty team, for lack of a better term, they shoot the ball well. But what I have also saw, this game is huge because, and I don't think it's huge that Indiana has to win it. I think that they have to be competitive and they have to play well, because you're still missing Jordan Geronimo, who would be huge in this game if you had him. You're still missing Xavier Johnson. I mean, you're missing a
Huge.
few guys here that you get them back, everything will be okay. So right now, which I think what you can't have happen is the same thing that happened in Maryland, where you come out, you don't shoot well. And it wasn't that I thought they didn't play hard in Maryland. They just didn't play well. They didn't execute. Another game like that, then you have the doubts again. So I think the big thing here today is for Indiana to play well on defense. Trace Jackson Davis stay out of foul trouble. Indiana has the players to win this game because, Purdue has looked invincible. But to me, Steve, from what I've seen, the 2023 March Madness NCAA tournament is going to be more open than any tournament we've seen in years because I just don't see a dominant team here.
Right. Yeah, you've been relying on Gonzaga and Kentucky and Duke to be dominant teams and Kansas. But right, yeah, you're right. It's a wide open field, wide open tournament. Back to our game. I in watching the Maryland game, one of the first things I noticed about the Maryland game was Indiana got out of its running of its sets.
Yeah, Maryland controlled the tempo.
Maryland took them right out of running their offense, and then Indiana started standing around and not moving, and they became very easy to guard. So here's what happens: if you run your sets, you become very difficult to guard. Chasing players all throughout is going to get you into foul trouble. You're going to get more tired. It's just like keeping a defense on the field in the NFL or college. You keep that defense on the field, they eventually wear down, and that gives your offense an edge. So it's the same thing in college basketball. The other thing I noticed is when Indiana runs its sets, and I think this is a key I've talked about all season long, Trace Jackson needs to touch the ball 70% of the time they come down court. It doesn't mean he's got to shoot the ball 70% of the time. It means he has to touch it. The ball's got to go into him because Trace is a very adept at passing off the post and finding other players that are open. And when guys are running their sets, they're cutting to the bucket. They're doing the things they need to do. And I think so. Indiana's got to stay in their sets. They got to run their offense. They're going to have the crowd in their favor, so they aren't going to be getting a lot of air ball like they got up at Maryland, Trace did, and a lot of crap going on. They're going to get the favoritism of the crowd. That's going to put some added pressure on Purdue. But keys, stay in your sets, stay defensively oriented in the sense that you're going to help other people out. You're all going to be aware of where Edey is on the basketball court at all time. You want to push him to the high post as much as you can. The farther away from the basket you get Edey, the less effective he becomes for their basketball team. And we're very fortunate that we have a Race Thompson who is a physical specimen of a basketball player and a good basketball player too. That I think he can take on Edey as the mainstay defensive player and get the support from Trace and the other guys around him. I mean, Miller Kopp's a sneaky little shit, just like Niedermeyer. He gets in and out of there. Galloway plays as high energy as any player on the IU team right now. And keep after it. Keep defensive pressure coming up from 5 players, not just 1 or 2 players. I think that's a key. And you said, Mike, and bring up our sponsor and talk about the betting because it's a surprise what's happened to the betting line right now.
Yeah,
so you talk about that. Who's our sponsor?
Betting.net, who finds the best promotions, offers some bonus codes so you don't have to. Head over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits. But last night, when I started to write my article for this morning, Indiana was a 1.5 underdog. I woke up this morning at like 5 to finish the article. Indiana was a 1.5 favorite. Now, I can tell you this. I will not bet this game because even if I like the odds, I'm not going to bet against Indiana and sit there and cheer against them. But given the number 1 ranked team who's only lost 1 game, a 1.5 against Indiana is a little nuts. But I'll also tell you this: I think Indiana can win this game.
Oh, I think Indiana can win.
The thing about it, the reason I'm not betting Indiana is because this is pretty much an even money game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, if you bet the Hoosiers to win straight up, it's like minus 112. You bet Purdue to win straight up, it's like minus 116. So to me, There's no value in betting this game. If Indiana was a 4.5-point underdog, I would have bet Indiana. If I could get Indiana plus 130 or 140, I would bet Indiana. I think what happens in this game, Steve, and then we'll go to your pick, is I think the Hoosiers come out. I think Trace Jackson Davis plays out of his mind. I think that I think Hood Shafito will play great. And the reason I say that is he's a freshman. All right. It's hard for a freshman to go to Maryland and play raucous crowd. He's inconsistent. He starts to press. That pressure hopefully will be alleviated. Of course, it can always be intensified in front of the home crowd. But if Hood Shafino comes out and plays well early, I think the Hoosiers win this game by 2, Steve.
I agree. Yeah. What I think is this, and I was feeling kind of down a few days ago, so I went to YouTube and I pulled up the 1981 national championship game. I do that every once in a while.
I do it just to hear Kenny Loggins' "This Is It" at the start.
Yeah, I do like that. I like that song better. But irregardless, and probably we got some fans listening to this right now that go, Kenny who? And This Is It? What?
They definitely don't know about Loggins and Messina.
Loggins and Messina, I've got
I think that's albums. A WWE tag team champion.
I know, I still have their albums. But
you still have albums?
Yeah, I have albums. I kept all my albums.
You need to get on eBay because I sold mine to me like $700 or $800 a couple years ago.
Mike, I have the Beatles White Album.
Do you have the record player?
No, I don't have a record player.
You might as well sell it.
I know. Well, but I can buy a record player at Best Buy for $59.95. Okay,
buy one, and then maybe next time, if IU wins today, then maybe we'll play part of the White Album.
Mike, we're dating ourselves talking about how old we are, that we have records.
Hey, this is the thing. I mean, I had records. I had 8-track cassettes, which were horrible.
I had 8-track cassettes.
You just had to let it play through. There was rewinding and hearing the song again. All right.
Anyway, wait. Let me get back to what I was going to say. Watching the IU Purdue game or the national championship game in 1981. As you recall, Enberg, Packer, and Al McGuire were calling the game, and they gave the most valuable player of the games award to who?
Steve Risley.
No.
I know. It's still bullshit to this day. Those 5 points mattered.
Who'd they give the awards to?
Who'd they give the awards to? Jimmy Thomas.
No.
Who'd they give the awards to?
They gave the awards to Bob Knight and Dean Smith.
They did not.
They did. Watch the game. At the end of the game, they said they're going to break tradition.
That is,
and they're going to give the MVP. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make.
I say it wasn't the MVP, though. Nobody cared what 3 old white guys said.
In a roundabout way, I think the MVPs of this game are going to be the coaches, because I think that there's talent abundance on both teams. Both teams are the 2 most talented teams in the Big Ten. It's going to be up to these coaches and their staffs to get their players to play within their systems, where it's gotten them to where they are. This is a premier matchup today, because this game's not been a marquee matchup for a while. I mean, we've seen this game on the Big Ten Network, and all of a sudden now it's prime time Saturday afternoon with Dickie V on ESPN2. I believe it's ESPN2, isn't it?
It's ESPN or ESPN. Probably
ESPN or ESPN2. I don't know. Mine are right next to each other.
So here's my question. Do we want to go live after this game?
I can do that if you want to, or we can. Yeah, I can go live if you want.
All right, so let's go live. Our live post-game show will occur approximately 15 minutes after the game, so approximately like 6:30. We'll be on live again, and then our weekly show will be what, Steve? Every Monday night at 7:00.
Sounds good.
All right. So on Monday night, we'll preview the upcoming week. We'll review the week that just happened. Today, we will have a post-game show. We'll do that for special occasions or games where the games are earlier, because me and Steve have early bedtimes now because we're getting older. But we will do that. And also, I want to remind you, a special deal we've got here at The Grilling Truth is you sign up with stake.us, use our exclusive promo code at TGT Social, capital letters, to secure your unique 5% rake back bonus. So if you like playing poker or you like playing slots, any online casino games, make sure you check out stake.us. All right, Steve, any final words before we close it out?
I pick IU by 1.5 to 2 points. You can't go by 1.5. So I say IU wins this game by 1 to 2 points. And the key here is the support they give on Edey and the support they give on Trace Jackson Davis. It's up to the other 4 players on the court that are going to decide this game, because I think both of our superstars, Edey and TJ, are going to play well on their own right. So I see it. There's not going to be a blowout. Of course, as soon as I say that, Purdue gets blown out. It'll be a
if
blowout.
Purdue gets blown out, nobody will mind you missed it. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Remember, me and Steve will be back 15 minutes after the conclusion of today's Purdue-Indiana game, which starts at 4 o'clock. So look for us between 6:15, 6:30. But for now, I want to remind you, you can follow Steve Risley at srisley34. You can follow The Grueling Truth at Grueling Truth. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification thing on YouTube. Make sure you go on and look into betting at our suggested betting site for this, which is SI Sportsbook. But for now, for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends